So how are you doing?
I'm good.
Well, I haven't,
It's like raining and monsoon season, so
I know I love monsoon season. I know
yeah.
most people don't, but I do. I love it. Although
Yeah.
I
How are
have to
you?
say, in the 37 years I lived in Arizona, I love monsoon except for one year. I think it was like 2014, something like that. I was on 7th Street in Greenway. It was
Uh-huh.
raining so hard. Garbage cans were floating in the street right around that area. And I thought, you can't really see where the median is because the water was so, full on the
Yeah.
street. Then I'm going to pull in to this little parking lot. And I don't know if you know that where that bird store is right there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I pull in there and a branch, I can't tell if it's like a branch or the actual Palo Verde tree that fell over on the hood of my car. Scared me to death.
Oh my gosh,
and I
that's
couldn't,
scary.
and I didn't move. I just sat there for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes until the rain stopped. And
Processing.
then, I'm just like, okay, I'm not moving. I'm right here. And so the rain stopped and I get out and I look and it's like my car wasn't damaged or anything. I'm like, okay. So I moved the branch and I just got back in my car and went home. I'm like, okay, lesson learned. Do not drive in that area during monsoon season
Yeah.
because it
Avoid.
floods.
Avoid
Anywhere
it
else, you're
all.
fine. You can drive on the freeway, you can go anywhere else, but that one area floods all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we've had some flooding though, like I-17 flooded and they had to get people out of their cars and
oh,
it's been
really?
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard there's been quite a bit of rain this year. The last few years that we really just didn't have that much.
No. Which I guess in the grand scheme of things is good, right?
Well, it is. The only downside to that much rain is everything grows and then when the rain stops, it dries up and
Where
then
does it go?
then you got fire season.
Uh, well,
So, but
how
yeah.
was your move and everything? Are you all settled now?
I'm working on it. We I don't know if Clarissa told you, but we moved from Arizona to Florida.
Uh-huh.
And then things did not go well in Florida. My mom fell a couple of times and injured herself very
Oh,
badly. And then I had radon poisoning.
oh my goodness.
And so I actually was very sick and I thought I was dying for real, not just exaggerating. I wasn't
Yeah.
like being dramatic. I was in and out of the ER like daily for a week.
Oh,
And at one point, I thought, well, my body's shutting down, my hair's falling out. And I thought, I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. And so uh, one day I just said to my mom, I said, the doctor thinks I have radon poisoning and I think it's your condo, which is where I was staying with her
oh
while I
my
was
goodness.
taking care of her. And I said, we're leaving today, pack your bag. We went to a hotel. I told her, I said, you know what? We can go back to Arizona or we can go somewhere else, but I can't stay here.
Yeah.
And so she called her sister in Virginia and her sister was excited. So we moved to Virginia.
Awesome.
So I'm actually in Hampton, Virginia. And yeah, it's really nice. I'm like 2 miles from the ocean,
Oh,
2 miles from the beach,
oh nice.
marinas and water everywhere. It's really fun. Like 2 blocks from a river, a couple blocks from, no, I'm sorry, 2 houses from the river, a couple blocks from the lake. And
That's amazing.
it's a beautiful, picturesque neighborhood. And
Oh,
yeah, it's really funny because it rains all the time and there's like all these water birds flying over our house. And I'm like, don't, I'm
oh,
not used to white birds flying over my house.
no. Oh,
And yeah, and then we have these beautiful, colorful birds. I don't even know what most of them are yet, but we have like cardinals and blue jays and these yellow birds and then bunnies running around all over the backyard and squirrels. And
this
it's it's
sounds amazing.
it's like a Norman Rockwell like neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I was telling my mom that it's like a Norman Rockwell neighborhood. And she said, yeah, I think this is the kind of neighborhood he used to, depict in
Live
his
in. Yeah.
art.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So, yeah.
That's
So,
so
anyway,
cool.
it's been good. And I was reading your bio. I saw you started your doctorate program. Congrats.
Yeah. So working on that and just making progress little by little.
Well, if I can give you any advice, I would say make sure your advisor for your dissertation is the right one, because I had 3 and I did not finish because every time I had to start over. Either my dissertation advisor would leave, or my dissertation advisor, the second one, told me my topic was too big after 5 years of working on it. Made me completely start over from scratch. And the third one didn't like what the second one did. And it was just too much. So make sure you get a really good advisor.
Yeah, I imagine that's super important because you have to work with them so much in tandem. So yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah, that really is probably the one thing that kept me from finishing.
Yeah. Which university did you go to? Can I ask?
Up in Prescott Valley.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah.
it was,
wonderful.
Yeah. So anyway, I think Clarissa's a little bit late. She said she's running a few minutes behind.
I think her girls started school today, so she was trying to make the mad dash to drop them off and then log in.
Okay, so let me just tell you how things. I'm sure she'll just kind of go with the flow, but just so you're aware, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce myself just very quickly, and then I'm going to talk about our topic for today. I'll read the description, and then I'll introduce you, and then I'll introduce Clarissa. I'll read a little bit of your bio, and then I'll ask you to kind of elaborate a little bit more. And, feel free to talk about, as much or as little as you want about a topic. If you want to share personal information, you're welcome to do so, but you are not, you don't have to, obviously. And then what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about Fusion Academy, because I really want people to understand what perspective you're coming from.
Sure.
And then we'll define what a best school is. And then we'll go into what parents are looking for and all the questions that you gave me. The very last question I always ask is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? So I'll tell you ahead of time so you can kind of think about that.
Start pondering that. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like surprises, so I won't give you surprises. Matt's going to come on. He's my producer, and he's going to come on and talk a little bit about sound checks, and he will also put in the chat. I think he starts off with 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 30 seconds. So pay attention to the chat. When we get around the 2-minute mark, we're going to wrap it up and go to break.
Okay.
And then we'll do that again right before the show ends. As we get to that 2-minute mark, I might ask you, I will ask you to give any information you would like to have our listeners have. So like website, phone number, whatever whatever information you'd like to give out. A lot of times our guests will have specials. So like an author might give an autographed book, or, if you want to offer free consultations, or, if you say, if you're not sure if the school is right for you, or if a particular school is right for you, you can give me a call and I can, help you with that. So if there's anything like that you want to offer our listeners, feel free to talk at that point in time about that.
Okay, cool.
So, and hopefully Clarissa will be able to log in before we go live. So how's everything going for you?
It's good. We start school August 22nd, so we're on a mad countdown for that. But I'm excited for school to start. It's been all summers are a little slower than the regular school year. So I'm excited to have people back on campus and hear the goofy laughter and all that fun that comes with
oh yeah. There's just a special kind of energy that has
yes.
That comes with school and with kids and all of that. True. Yeah.
It's always my favorite time of year too. So
yeah. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Fuzzy. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
I would like to introduce you to Jessica Caston. She's the head of school at Fusion Academy. Jessica, this is my wonderful producer, Matt.
Hello. Good morning.
Good morning, Jessica. How you doing today?
Good. Hey, Matt. We have one other individual that's going to be joining us, Clarissa, and she is not here yet. So just FYI.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and do some sound checks here. Fozzie, go ahead and do a count back from 5.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. Sounds good. And Jessica, go ahead and do the same.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right. And Jessica, are you just using the internal mic on your computer?
Yes,
All right. Is it a laptop, desktop?
it's a laptop.
Laptop. Okay. All right. Do me a favor and kind of just back away from it just a little bit and then count back one more time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it sounds okay. We could hear you clearly, so it's all right. The volume's pretty good, so we're good there. Just know with that mic, it's just kind of like an open mic, and like if you move around or talk with your hands and hit your desk or anything like that, those types of noises will come through. So just kind of be conscious of that. All right.
Okay.
We're shuffling papers. A lot of times people like to shuffle papers.
All right, we've got about a minute. So
Okay.
hopefully your other guests will join in soon. If we do have to start the show before your other guest joins in and then they join in the middle, if their sound is off and they're not sounding good or something, you could just take it to a quick break and then we'll do the break early or something, and get them situated and then you can go back on.
Okay. Do you want me to just put it in the chat?
Yeah. Well, if when they join, because we got to start here shortly, but so it looks like they're going to join.
Or you can let me know if you think we need to break.
I'll just send you a message.
We'll
Like, go
okay.
take it to a break or something. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Let me
Matt.
send a hello. Make sure that's working.
Got it.
Got it. All right. Cool.
Oh, here's Clarissa. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
There she is. Okay. Hi, Clarissa.
Morning.
Hey, I hate to just jump to the point, but Matt is my producer. Matt, this is Clarissa. Matt's going to do a quick sound check. And if you keep an eye on the chat, that will also be helpful.
All right, Clarissa, do me a favor and just count back from 5 for me.
5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, sounds okay. It's just a little quiet. Are you using an external mic at all or just the internal on your computer?
Just the one on the computer.
Okay, perfect. All right, do me a favor.
I have headphones. Let me see if I can find them. Oh, I do. I have headphones. Is that better?
All right, come back from 5 one more time.
Hold on.
You're good.
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, yeah, I'm still going to have you go in and turn up the volume in Zoom here really quickly. If you go down to the bottom left corner of the Zoom window, you see the mute button. Right to the right of it is a little arrow. Click right on the arrow. Right, click at the bottom where it says audio settings. All right, and in the middle of the window is the input, which is your microphone. So right around the center of the window, there's a little tab that says automatically adjust microphone volume. Make sure that's not selected.
Okay.
Right, and then up above that and right below where it says test mic is the volume slide bar, the blue slider there. Where would you say percentage-wise it's at right now?
Probably 30%, 40.
All right, go ahead and raise it to maybe about 60% and then count back from 5 for me one more time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, I am hearing probably sounds like a computer fan right now.
I didn't do it.
Okay, it just went away. All right, perfect. Okay, so it's gone. All right, I'm sorry. So Clarissa, count back for me one more time.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, so that is on your computer fan noise there. Okay, so at the bottom of the window, you see where it has the background suppression. It's probably selected on auto right now for you.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead and change that to medium.
Okay.
And yeah, it's still doing with the fan noise there. Yeah, it's not. Do you hear it, Fazia?
I do.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how we would be able to get that out.
Should I do high? See if that helps.
I don't know that it's changing it. It's just kind of a constant thing that's coming on with the. I don't think it's gonna. If it's trying to block that, it'll kind of mess up and try and block what you're saying sometimes too. So I don't want to raise it up any high to the high. So I don't think that's going to change anything. Well, do me a favor and so just we might just need you to mute. Hit that mute button.
You're not the first person that's told me.
Yeah, we just might need you to just hit the mute button and when you're not speaking, and just have to remember to unmute when you're going to talk. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right. So we're going to get started right now. So if you want to go ahead and mute. All right, Fozzie, I'm going to go ahead and send the feed your way. All right, have a good show.
Thanks. Thank you.
Welcome to Focus on Success with Fozzie Acosti. Our program is designed to help you with executive function challenges. Our guest experts offer perspective, experience, and ideas to improve different aspects of your life. Now, here is your host, Fozzie Acosti.
Hi. Hope you're all having a wonderful day so far. I'm Fozzie Acosti, and today we are talking to Jessica Caston, who's the head of school for Fusion Academy, and Clarissa Abijawdi, the director of outreach at Fusion Academy. And we are talking about finding the best school for your child. The concept of what is the best school has shifted a lot in recent years, as it should have. The conversation is not about who has the highest test scores, the most homework, or the rate of matriculation, I can't speak today, to the most well-known universities. In education and with mental health, parents, caregivers, and professionals need to look inward to their own child and find the environment that is the best fit for their individual needs, learning styles, and goals. Furthermore, the choice you make for your child is in elementary school may not be the best place for them to thrive in middle school or high school. We will explore family options based on each individual child and offer tips on how to advocate for those particular needs. So welcome, Jessica, and welcome, Clarissa. I'm just going to give a quick little background for each individual. So Jessica is the head of school for Fusion Academy. She's earned her bachelor's degree in liberal arts from Hope International University before moving on to complete a master's of arts in teaching from University of Southern California. She's currently pursuing her doctorate through Grand Canyon University. I don't know what's happening with my voice. Jessica joined Fusion Academy in 2019, serving as the assistant director and launching her beautiful Scottsdale campus. Over the past decade, Jessica has dedicated herself to educating students throughout Arizona. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, reading, and playing board games with family and friends. So welcome, Jessica. And then Clarissa attended the University of Arizona and completed a bachelor's degree in psychology, continued her pursuit in the field of mental health, and she graduated from USC with a master's in marriage and family therapy. Clarissa worked in community mental health programs and in private practice as a therapist prior to joining Fusion in 2011. After a friend introduced her to Fusion California, she knew Fusion would give her the opportunity to help students realize their true potential. Clarissa loves to travel with her family and enjoys different foods and cultures from around the world. After being born and raised in Arizona, she's excited to return home after several years of living in Los Angeles. So welcome, ladies. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you
Thanks
for having us.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. I don't know if our listeners, well, they probably are not aware of the fact that we've had a few years of knowing each other. So I'm really glad that we've known each other for as long as we have. It's been, in my opinion, a wonderful relationship. I I love the fact that Fusion Academy exists. I love the fact that you two women exist and that I can refer my clients when they need your services. And I know without question, without hesitation, that they're going to get the best education possible. And I truly mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's wonderful when I have a student that goes to your school and they tell me wonderful things about you and the school and the other students there. So it's, you actually give your students an amazing environment and a wonderful learning opportunity. So let's talk a little bit about Fusion Academy, and maybe we can ask that question of Jessica. Jessica, what is Fusion Academy? Tell us more about what you do.
So Fusion Academy serves students grades 6 through 12. All of our classes, whether it's a full-time student, part-time, hybrid, tutoring student, all of our classes are served in a one-to-one capacity. So one student, one teacher. So they're really getting an opportunity to dig into the concepts and have a conversation and build a rapport with an adult in a way that, quite frankly, just isn't possible in a traditional school setting. So we're really proud of our model. We think it's very revolutionary in terms of education. And like you said, we do it for the kids, and we do it so that they can have a positive experience at school when oftentimes they come to us having a negative experience with school. So we can kind of shift that perspective for them.
It's like being homeschooled without being homeschooled.
Yeah, without mom. Yeah.
Which I love. I actually, I homeschooled my own kids for like a very brief period of time. And then we did kind of a hybrid homeschool program, but I've also homeschooled other kids for other families. And there's a huge difference between homeschooling your own children and homeschooling someone else's. But I think what Fusion does is take it to the next level. You have the state of the art classrooms, you have the state, the teachers who specialize in their particular areas of expertise. So I think you offer something that even a homeschooler would not get from their parents who truly have their best interest at heart. So I think you offer that next level education, which I absolutely love. So let's talk a little bit about what does it mean? What does it mean to be the best school? What is the best? How do I know my child's in the best school? How does a parent know that?
Well, Fauzia, like you mentioned, we've known each other for a while, so you know that sometimes we can be a little tongue-in-cheek when we're having conversations, right? And so that's kind of why we thought this would be an intriguing topic of conversation, is because, and best being sort of in quotation marks, right? Because, and I also want to preface our conversation today as, yes, this is definitely what Jessica and I believe in, and why we're so connected and believe so strongly in the work that we do at Fusion. But it's also pulled from conversations that we've had with a lot of the professionals that we work with in our community, right? And so that goes to show that, as you mentioned in our sort of introduction, that it is a developing conversation. And rather than, it's morphed a lot. And like you said, I grew up here, so I went to some of the schools here a long time ago. And so then coming back and looking at it through a different lens as an educator, as a parent myself, and understanding that we're able to have these conversations now that are more about finding the best fit for your child. And that's really the background of where we're coming from. Again, as educators, whether it's at Fusion, whether it's something else in the community, whether it's a combination of that, and also from our perspective at Fusion, just talking about, we have the good fortune, because we're so personalized in the one-to-one setting, of really meeting that student where they are academically as well as socially and emotionally, and sort of piecing together those puzzle pieces that are going to make a student. And so to answer your question, talking about the best school, where can we find an environment that's going to support a child and make them feel really good about the work that they're doing in the classroom, help them to make connections with other like-minded children, give them those not only beautiful aesthetic spaces to pursue passions, but also, really hands-on experiences, so that they have an understanding of what that could look like beyond school walls, and also taking into account a family's values, and taking into account not only a family or a student's goals, but for current day as well as beyond their school years, but also taking into account life, and how that throws curveballs at you, and sometimes you have to make those shifts and plan accordingly. And I think that's that's a lot of the work that Jessica and I do, is really finding those parents and having those open and honest conversations about the unique aspects of their child and how we can either be a part of that or be a connector to something that's going to best support them.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that I really like about both of you two ladies, as well as your school, is that not everyone that walks in your door is going to be the right fit for you, but you're so well connected. And I believe in that same concept of having lots of people in your network, lots of people that you can connect with, so that you can provide the best for that student, so that that child walks away feeling great, their parents walk away feeling great, and that they're genuinely getting what's best for them. So I love that. What are some of the things that parents look for in a school that's maybe customized for them? What are some things that you've heard?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I'm hearing from parents is they're looking for frequent, open, and honest communication from the school. They want to keep a pulse on what's going on in the school. And I think through COVID, that kind of opened that door. And now parents are thirsty for that communication in a more consistent way. So whether that's daily notes from the teacher, whether that's a monthly progress report, whether that's a quarterly meet the teacher night where you can check in face to face. I think parents really want to be in touch with their teacher team, with their school team, and know what progress their kiddo's making.
And how often do parents want those progress reports? You said that sometimes it's a daily note. Do you feel like, especially for kiddos that have more challenges, do you think that daily communication is more important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that it also just gives a starting point for a dinner conversation. The typical, what did you do at school today? Nothing. The parents can pull up that daily note and say, actually, I see that you did a lab, or I see that you did a project in the tech lab, or, it's that conversation starter that I think so many families kind of need that push to start. I would also say that students and parents are looking for safety, right, is really important. Making sure that their schools are a safe place to be, and also opportunities to socialize. Again, going back to coming out of COVID, students were in their house on virtual learning 24/7. And now parents are looking for outlets for their students to get reconnected person to person, peer to peer, whether it's going on a field trip or getting out for a club activity or doing some community service with like-minded teenagers. They're looking for those opportunities to have their students socialize in a more traditional sense, face-to-face, not just over Zoom.
Absolutely. And I love that you offer that at your school as well. Even though you have the one-on-one instruction, you still have that opportunity where students can go and do homework together, maybe have a cup of coffee together, or whatever it is that they can do to interact in a public type space. So that's wonderful.
And I'd also say that, structured socialization. I think sometimes we assume that students just are naturally inclined to know how to make friends and act in social situations. And not all of our students and not all teenagers are. And so providing them with social opportunities that do have adults present, that do have an activity present, so that they can kind of learn the rules, so to speak, of what does appropriate social behavior look like? What does it look like to make a friend? And how can a mentor or a teacher help me kind of build those bridges to friendships?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really important, especially in a one-on-one situation, because the teacher's modeling that behavior. And that student gets to see, that interaction in real time. And it's like, oh, this is how we talk to somebody we want to actually get to know. And it's mutual, it doesn't, you can't just walk up to somebody and say, okay, you're going to be my friend. They have to like you too. And so, it's a very mutual thing. So a lot of kids don't get that, especially the younger ones. So I love that structured socialization. How do you offer structured socialization other than that modeling behavior?
Yeah, so we do have for a class, a community minds class, what that explicitly teaches that social behavior. In addition, our homework cafe spaces are spaces that students hang out in between classes. And that's not only meant to get their homework done, but it also, there's games present, there's activities, and there's always adults present. And that's key, right? And then all of our students stop for lunch 12:30 to 1:30. So there's always trivia or Jeopardy or a movie day or a club meeting, something going on in those spaces during lunch that a student can join in on. So I think that those are, and then field trips and community service off campus, of course.
Absolutely.
I think the key to the way I get this question so much that I feel like I have a lot of the answers running through my mind constantly, because
I would love to hear those.
Well, you don't want to hear everything running through my mind, but I mean, I think that but the reason why I get this question so much is because it's really hard to conceptualize how do we do the one-to-one instruction, but then balance it with a lot of those developmental scenarios that are so important, right? And so the foundation, the way that I think about it, is we're teasing apart what sort of naturally happens in larger classroom settings for some students. Again, like Jessica said, it's not for every student, right? And so they have their one-to-one instruction time, but that doesn't mean that the person that you're making friends with is the same person that you did the lab with, or sat next to in 9th grade English, right? And so they have the classroom time where they can really get their needs met on that academic level, either filling in gaps or challenging them further, or figuring that piece out. But then in that homework cafe setting, or during those lunch hour activities or a field trip or something like that, it becomes more of a natural connection to mutual interests and, again, people that they're interested in, have common interests with, and not necessarily just have the same class schedule or things like that. And so it's just a whole balancing act. But I think, like I said, that foundation is just looking at that individual, and we have so many opportunities for students, again, whether it's academic or on a social level, that we can just customize that experience. And again, going back to other school settings, even aside from Fusion, I think that's really something to look for, is looking at your individual child and what their learning style or their social style is like, and seeing if the schools that you're looking at and asking those questions of the administrators and the people that develop the program, and figuring out if that pieces together well with your child and helping them to grow and to nurture.
Absolutely. What do you think is the top goal for seeking alternative learning? What should a parent look for?
Well, Jessica mentioned the communication. I think that's a huge one. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I look at, just on a personal note, is parent involvement, in the sense of, first of all, how open is the school to allowing for parent involvement, and secondly, how many parents are taking up on that offer. And part of that is because not necessarily, the parents aren't going to write like the history curriculum or something like that, but at least you have like-minded people that want to be curious and want to have an understanding. And it helps us as administrators to understand how to drive the pieces like you're talking about, the social learning, or whether it's field trips or parent education nights. We'll oftentimes bring in speakers or have presentations so that families can get educated on specific topics. And like you had mentioned, the modeling, I think that's really great modeling for students. If they, mm-hmm. It's one thing if you have mom or dad dropping you off and they're like, okay, like, go learn, be a good kid. but then if you have the parents saying, okay, you go to that experience or something like that, and then I have this other opportunity where I can get involved in this school, and it just mm-hmm. it feels more of a we're all on the same page experience. I think also, again, working in a one-to-one setting, we work with a lot of different types of students. Sometimes they do need more support in areas of learning. Sometimes it's more of that mental health support, and so we're just really keying into that mentoring experience. Sometimes it's simply because they need a more flexible schedule. They have other activities that they're really pursuing at a very high level, more so than other peers their age. And so we can be really meticulous with how we customize their schedule. And so as a parent, I think parents I would encourage parents to also look at what resources are available either within that school or, for example, like Fusion, within our network of community resources. So if your student needs additional reading support or needs additional speech therapy or something like that, how easy is that to fold into what they're already experiencing day to day on their campuses? Or is this something that you're really going to need to piece together on your end? And again, something that Jessica and I talk about a lot, with our families and with our program is how well can that family do that, right? Like we don't want to enroll a family in our program or, talk with somebody who needs a lot of additional services that they're going to have to piece together and they don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that. So,
or the know-how. Not everyone knows.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I think that's really important information to have. What about academic rigor? How can parents understand what academic rigor is and how it impacts their children and how it impacts their families?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes back to kind of what Clarissa was talking about the family's goals, about the students' goals, right? What does that look like for a junior high student? What are their goals for high school? What are their goals post-secondary? And not every teenager has that figured out, right? And so
no, most don't.
Mom and dad might have it figured out for them, but we want to make sure that those kind of come into alignment. But I just encourage parents to look at grading practices, ask around and say, how do your teachers grade assignments? Do you use a rubric? Is that rubric visible to the student? Is it reviewed with the student before the assignments due, right? How much transparency is there with grading? Similarly with curriculum, do you guys use a textbook and it's a box curriculum and you go lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3? Or if my kiddo knows lesson 1 through 11, can they start on lesson 12 by testing out?
Right. Can we customize it?
Exactly. So what can that look like? I'd also ask about teacher backgrounds, right? Is it somebody that just has a substitute cert and their high school diploma that's teaching my kiddo, which is a possibility in Arizona? Or do they have a bachelor's or an education background or a content specific background, digging in a little bit with the principal about what their hiring practices is. I always say I hire good people first and foremost because they spend too much time with our kiddos to not be good people, to not want to work with children.
Right.
And so that ties back to academic rigor because we don't believe at Fusion that if we don't show love and figure out how to motivate your kid, that a lot of teaching is going to happen. So there's not going to be a lot of academic rigor if we don't have good people, good teachers at the foundation of our program.
No, I agree with you. That's a really good practice to have. You're right. Those are the people that are going to be basically parenting your children in your absence. So their character is very important. Thank you for that. How do schools understand the level a child is understanding, and how can parents understand this?
So we do standardized testing with our students when they start, and then we do it every spring. And so we definitely have that baseline data to show, where do they start, and then to hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we're showing growth. But we all know that a standardized test doesn't tell the whole picture, right? And so we really want to dig into some of the narrative data from the teacher, some of the classwork and the coursework and the assessments that they're doing and the projects that they're doing cross collaboration with other departments. So yes, the testing data is great, and we want to show that because if they are going post-secondary, they're going to need, to know how to do a paper pencil test.
Sure.
But especially our kiddos are just so much more than a test. And so we want to really showcase those other pieces of evidence of learning as well.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about social emotional learning. What is it? What is social emotional learning? And why is it important in what you do?
Well, Jessica mentioned hiring good people. And I think of social emotional learning as an extension of that in developing good humans. And honestly, I mean, that's part of what's connected me to Fusion for so many years, is that's at the foundation, that's at the crux of what we're doing. Yes, it's the academic work and rigor and again, personalization and customization, but it's also really looking at each child as an individual and developing them to interact with the world around them in a very open and honest and reflective and empathetic way, so that we can, how people always talk about, I never used algebra when I grew up or something like that, but I had to take it so many times in high school or whatever the conversation is. And so we want to, not only develop our Fusion students, but also have that conversation with students and families to access ways that they can develop healthy learning within their school settings, right? And so we do, we have some classes that are specific to social emotional learning and development and things like that. But then it's also woven into the work that each teacher is doing in that one-to-one setting. As Jessica mentioned, a lot of our social opportunities and small group learning labs and things like that for students to be able to just understand how to put those skills into practice when you need something, need to address something, need to self-advocate, need to stand up for a person next to you. What am I missing?
Well, all I'm hearing is it all comes down to modeling. You're modeling excellent behavior for your students, and you are giving them wonderful human beings to interact with and learn from. And that, I think, is worth every penny when you send your kids to school, whether it's through your tax dollars or private pay. That's what you want. You want good people around your kids. And I think that's wonderful. So we have a couple minutes before break. I just want to quickly give people a way to connect with you if they'd like to do that. I have your website is fusionacademy.com, and the phone number is 602-661-3721. Is there any other way you'd like them to connect with you?
They're welcome to email us at scottsdale@fusionacademy.com if they have any questions or wonderings. We're happy to connect with families and share the resources and network of professionals that we have connected with and continue to connect with.
Thank you so much. So if you'd like to get in touch with me, you can go to executivefunctioncoachaz.com. You can subscribe to our magazine. Our next issue, our 4th issue, comes out in October. So if you have not received a copy yet, please go to our website, subscribe, and you can also look at the last 3 issues on the website. So you can take a peek at what we've done, and hopefully every issue is better than the last. So don't miss the next one. And you can also listen to our radio show, as well as go onto our YouTube channel and see this particular show behind the scenes. So we'll have this up in about a week, and you can take a peek at it then. We'll be back after these messages, and we'll talk a little bit more with Jessica Caston and Clarissa Abijaudi of Fusion Academy.
Okay, good. We're all clear. Back in about 2.
Okay, thanks, Matt. And Clarissa, I hope I'm saying your last name correctly.
I mean, it's in there. It's Abijaudi.
Abijaudi. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a hard one.
I can't even say my own name, so it doesn't. Abijaudi. Okay. I will try not to mess it up again.
No, that's okay. It's not the first.
I can't speak today. It's like my tongue keeps saying, nope, we're not saying that today. So I hope this has been okay so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we'll talk about how parents can advocate for support within their existing school setting, indicators that a student is not thriving, and we'll just go from there. We still have about 6-7 questions, but I don't know if we'll get through all of them, so I might just pick and choose which ones we talk about.
A lot of it's overlapping anyways. We may have even sort of answered it.
Yes. The very last question I'll ask is, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self? So I already talked to Jessica about that. So Clarissa, that's something you might want to think about. I'll be honest. The reason I do that is because I've been doing it for about a year now. And so when I when I want to take a break and not go live on the air, then I take all those episodes and I take that last little snippet and I do one show out of it. And then I can create a full show on advice from our experts on what they would tell themselves.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have to think of the answer, and then I probably have to edit it.
The pressure is mounting.
Yeah.
Did your girls get dropped off okay?
They got dropped off, but the first couple of days of school, people don't know how to drive in the parking lot, and we're going new parents.
You ready, Matt?
Yep. We got about 12 seconds here and we'll come back.
Okay, thanks.
Succeed. VoiceAmericaEmpowerment.com.
You are listening to Focus on Success. To reach Fawzia Costi or her guest on the live show, please call 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to fawzia@executivefunctioncoachaz.com. Now, back to Focus on Success.
Welcome back. I'm Fawzia Costi, and today we're talking to Jessica Caston and Clarissa Abijawdi, which, by the way, I've been mispronouncing her last name, so I'm sorry about that. We've been talking to them about a wonderful topic, about education and how to find the right fit for your child. And so we're going to talk the rest of this show about how parents can advocate for support with their existing school setting. So Jessica, maybe I can start with you. What do you think parents can do to advocate for their students to help them create a situation where they're getting what they need?
Yeah, whether the student is struggling or thriving, I would always encourage parents to reach out to the school administration, make sure that you know those people, make sure you have their contact information, ask about potential resources or referrals to local professionals. Don't wait until there's a problem. Connect early and often and get those lines of communication open. I would also recommend, if it's appropriate, reaching out to the special education team or the 504 team and just getting, again, those resources and connections early and often, and see if they have anybody on site that's offering services like speech therapy or occupational therapy, or if they would refer you offsite to a counselor or therapist or executive functioning coach, right? Just open lines of communication is the best piece of advice I could give.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think sometimes it becomes tough for parents because a lot of schools don't have that referral in place already. So parents really have to advocate. What do they do in a situation where maybe the school doesn't want to give them that information?
Yeah, I would recommend reaching out. There's educational consultants that are all over our area that are really useful, educational advocates that are very, very useful. And these are professionals that work for the parents, right? To make sure that they're advocating and getting the services that the student needs. And so it doesn't have to be an aggressive situation. It could just be seeking out resources and getting a professional's insight. And, families that are in our area and looking to get that kind of support or referral out, we're certainly always happy to give that as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I just know for a lot of parents, it becomes very stressful when a school doesn't have the know-how or the information that they need. What are some of the indicators that a student isn't thriving? What do parents need to look for?
It's interesting. I don't think it's anything that is, I don't think anything that we're going to say right now is going to necessarily be an aha moment, but it's looking for those scenarios where their behaviors or their academic output, it's not aligned with how you know your child in another setting, or how you've seen your child maybe reading to you or doing math flashcards with you or something like that. Where is that disconnect between what's going on at school and that child that right? And so it could be things like consistently not performing well either in a certain subject matter or across the board. Things like a lot of behavioral challenges at school, either kind of disruptive behavior or maybe a lot of notes coming home from the teacher. Maybe communication home, like, oh, I had to move them to a different part of the classroom or send them to a different room in the school or something like that. And I say that because that's not necessarily an indicator that there's some new diagnostic criteria with that child, but there's something wrong with the environment or the best fit for that child. And again, it's not in agreement with what's currently going on. Withdrawal, we get a lot of calls at Fusion. We get a lot of calls from families where the child's just, school refusal. They physically, they're so anxiety stricken, they cannot get out of the car to go into their school. And so, looking at alternative settings, or even just having the conversation of what else can we do to help you be able to access school, and bringing them to a school like ours, can potentially just make it a little bit more attainable for that child. I always say it's a little bit more palatable. It's something that they can wrap their mind around, rather than walking into this setting that feels too overwhelming. Things like, again, we'll get families that have they have so much outside tutoring beyond the school day that the student is basically relearning all of the material beyond the school hours. And if you make the parallel of a child's job being to go to school, imagine if you were working all day and then you had to go home and do it all over again. And that would be exhausting. It would be exhausting for us, and we're grown-ups. And so you imagine a child having to navigate that when they don't have the development to be able to understand why that's happening, or why their friends don't have to do that. And it affects them in multiple areas. So things like that. I mean, tutoring is definitely beneficial, but I think it's just looking at those extreme scenarios.
Yeah, too much of anything is not good.
Exactly.
It also damages their self-confidence, their self-esteem. It's just not good overall. Yeah, I agree with you. It's a little rough for a kid. What are some examples of students needing an alternative to their current learning situation? So what are you seeing when students come to you? What are they coming to you from? Like, what is their current situation that makes it not workable?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an extension of some of the things that we were just talking about. So there's something happening where they're not learning, they're not able to access the information in their current setting. They're not able to navigate the social emotional, or I should say the social elements of things, or maybe there's something internally on an emotional level that's going on with them. And so it's too much of a burden to ask the student to navigate a more traditional learning setting and work on their mental health. So those are some reasons. And again, families will come to us, and it may be that they need to look for a completely different learning environment. And so they become a full-time student, either at a program like Fusion or at another alternative setting, or maybe it's piecing together those resources, and Fusion is a part of those resources. Maybe it's just doing one class with us. Some students who have specific learning disabilities, they can opt to not take a class at their current setting, and then they can just take it with us, or like I said, setting up some more routine tutoring, so that again the student is able to navigate their courses at the same level as their peers without exhausting them mentally and physically.
So maybe they could take math at your school.
Sure.
Maybe they have a issue with taking math at the traditional school. They don't learn well there.
Exactly.
So they can come to you, get that one-on-one instruction. It's similar to getting tutoring every day, but instead it's during their school hours.
Well, exactly. And it's not, I just think of these kids that are asked to essentially relearn information, or, some schools, and it's not for lack of trying that other schools aren't able to support different types of learners, but that's what we do, is customize our experience. And if a school is not set up for that customization, then they don't have the internal resources. And so the only options that they have available, again, can be super taxing on a child. So thinking of it in that way. And you had mentioned homeschool options, right? And again, that's also a very developing conversation. And sometimes I'll mention the word homeschool to parents and they're like, no way, I'm not doing that. And I'm not talking about you sitting down with a workbook and having to go through everything with your child. I'm talking about piecing together, like we were saying, piecing together those resources so that, and there's so many options out there, so that maybe there are some things that either you do at home, or that you have an outside tutor or instructor come and do that in your home, but then you also have different enrichment programs or different experiences where they're around other students. And again, that was a developing conversation even prior to COVID, but where we are now, I think that we're able to pull out some of the experiences that were born from dire need in the past couple of years, and then be able to say, like, oh, actually we can use Zoom learning to our advantage. Maybe when we're traveling, we can still Zoom into our class. And so we keep the family unit together by keeping us all traveling, but then the student is still, on task with their learning, or like I'm saying.
I think one of the things that online learning did is opened up doors or windows for people who really wanted an alternative lifestyle. Like they wanted to travel, but still have their kids in an education environment that didn't require them to do the teaching. So I think it really does open a lot of doors, or a lot of windows, whichever way you want to look at it. But how can parents build a network of resources for their child if they wanted to basically be the manager of their child's education and not just hand them over to, say, a public school? How can they do that?
Yeah, so in Arizona, school choice is a huge movement right now, whether it's charter schools, public, private, homeschool, there's lots of options and it's growing every day. And so, getting onto those Facebook groups, getting onto social media and finding those groups of people who are pulling those resources together. Just to give a brief anecdote, I've got a 15-year-old son. The traditional model did not work for him. And so that's exactly what I'm doing, is I'm piecing together a program that works for him. It was not going to work to have due dates and a set schedule. He needed something that was self-paced. So we got a self-paced curriculum that he can go at his own time. I've got tutoring at Fusion twice a week to support with those classes that he struggles with most. I've got a Zoom art class that I pull from and he goes to that. I've got a Dungeons and Dragons club he goes to once a week. So it really is, as a parent, just finding these resources, finding other parents who think like-mindedly, finding schools like Fusion that are willing to partner with you and work with your student, and then running with it, right? And I understand that not all parents have the capacity to piecemeal things together. And so that's why, programs like Fusion and other programs that are more holistic, or can be, are great. But there are just so many, this is an exciting time in education, that there's just so many people that are willing and able to help, and so many fun, engaging educational experiences for kids, that the sky is really the limit in terms of what you could build for a student.
I agree. I think it is a really exciting time for education. And what I really love is how it customizes to the individual, because even though there's billions of us on this planet, everyone is different. And not everyone learns the same. Not everyone has the same interests. And that is evident since we're little. If somebody has an interest in art, they're probably going to have had that interest since they were little. It doesn't just magically appear when they're 20 or 16. It's probably always been there. So I love the fact that schools are starting to recognize this, that parents are recognizing this, and that education is starting to nurture this and really help develop individuals' skill sets, their talents, their gifts. They really need to develop those gifts so that they can be the best versions of who they are. And I love that. I absolutely love that. So let's talk a little bit about support services or examples of other types of schools or that parents can explore. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, again, I mean, we work with such a wonderful network of providers. I'm super fortunate to be in this area and to have all of these connections, so that when a parent, a professional, a colleague, anybody asks me or brings something up, and it's actually, I have friends that'll make fun of me and say, like, don't tell Clarissa what you do because she'll start marketing it for you. And it's the truth, because I'll just start putting those pieces together, because I want people to feel that support and not feel isolated in whatever they're experiencing, and I want my friends to thrive, right? And so I think there's so many, right? There's and I encourage families to really talk about the nuances of what they're, talk about what they're experiencing, and look for those professionals that are like-minded and that have those specialties, right? Whether it's a psychologist or a therapist or licensed professional counselor, or somebody that has that specialty that works with that kiddo that you're looking for support from. Look for resources as a parent in tandem with what your child is doing. Again, going back to that modeling that we were talking about, speech and language support therapists. There's so many. When you start talking to people, you really understand, like I said, the nuances to it. And that's part of why I talk to so many people, so that I can really, understand everybody's differences and how they would connect with a student. And I think about those individuals that would be a better fit with this practitioner or another one. Occupational therapists, they've developed a lot of occupational therapists have developed, again, really specific programs to work with a lot of different types of kiddos. Developmental pediatricians, social groups, social learning groups. Jessica was talking about the art class that her son's in, other enrichment opportunities, other sports opportunities. And again, this doesn't have to be something that's happening on the campus, but when you're looking at different enrichment opportunities in the community, it doesn't have to be traditional. Again, it's looking at what's the best fit for your child and for your family. There's so many ways that you can assess your child, and we work with a lot of neuropsychologists that perform assessments for children, and that will help us as parents, as educators, to really understand that child's need. Somebody like yourself, executive functioning coaching, and really, I think of your role as setting that student up for success, and so they're able to navigate, again, whether it's a traditional or non-traditional academic setting. It's helping that child to have a lot of self-awareness and be able to self-advocate in the different settings that they're navigating. We
Absolutely.
mentioned public schools, private schools, a lot of parochial schools will help, because they're smaller. A lot of parochial schools will help navigate that. Homeschool settings, online learning. There's so many options. It's just getting curious.
Yeah, no, I love that there's so many options, because I think people will find what they need, and they will be able to give their child exactly what that child deserves and needs. So that's wonderful. You talked a little bit about executive functioning. Let's talk about how schools support executive functioning. How do they assess when students are at a deficit for executive functioning?
Yeah, so all of our full-time students, we give them a test called MindPrint, which I think parents have access to online as well, but that does test for executive functioning skills such as short and long-term memory, attention, flexible thinking. And so that gives us a really good baseline of how that learner learns best. And not that we're going to fix or overcome some of those deficits, but more that we'll be aware of those deficits and giving the students and the teachers tools for their tool belt, and how are we going to address these moving forward. So if you struggle with attention, we're not going to be able to eliminate that necessarily with executive functioning tutoring, but we are going to make the student more aware of that attention deficit and help that student understand that, hey, if you put a fan on while you're doing your studying, maybe that will help you focus more. Or if you get earplugs, or if you're in a one-to-one setting, it looks like you're learning a little bit quicker and a little bit faster. And so just being more aware of what those deficits are, and then starting to make the parents and the student more aware of them so that they can start to work to overcome them whenever possible.
That's wonderful. Yeah, no, I really appreciate what you guys do. I think you have a phenomenal program. I think you have a phenomenal team of people that you've put together at your school. You actually, make me feel better about the field of education, because I know that when somebody's not doing well in a traditional or public school, that I can have an alternative to send them to. And it's not just in Scottsdale. I have access throughout the whole country, even your online version. And it makes me feel better just knowing that you're out there. And I say that, with gratitude, because there was a time when I didn't know. And it was very frustrating to have a student that had asynchronous development and I had no way to help them. So now, it's a real joy to have somebody that can do that. So we have about 4 minutes before we end our time together. And I wanted to ask you both, what is your last bit of advice that you would give a parent who's looking for an alternative way to educate their child? Any last bit of advice?
I think just to piggyback what Clarissa said, get curious about what your students' interests are, get curious about where your student currently is placed, get curious about the schools around you, the resources around you, get on those social media groups, get curious about the funding sources potentially for private schools around you. Just continue to get to know the resources you already know, and then expand that network so that if something comes up, or if your student starts to struggle, you have those resources to lean on, or those people to lean on in times of trouble, or in times of just wanting to get ahead or grow faster.
Thank you. So last question, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
I would say chill out. I graduated in 3 years, my bachelor's degree in 3 years, and I would tell myself to chill out. Just enjoy this time in your life. You're only going to get it once. So just enjoy college, enjoy the ride when you are there, and all the other stuff will fall into place later.
That's very good advice. Clarissa?
Well, I mean, it's somewhat similar to Jessica, but I was probably coming at it from a different angle, which I would tell myself to have more patience. I think I did run through a lot of things really quickly, and like Jessica said, just to be able to enjoy it, and even to myself and advice to parents, not having shame around challenges that you're having, because once you talk about it, once you sort of walk through that difficulty, you'll just find that the doors will open and that resources will be available to you, that you can not only build a better life for yourself, but for your family and your children and those around you.
And I think you also find out you're not the only one.
Oh, 100%.
When you talk about something, you find out you're not the only one. And that I think is a big eye opener for people in their 20s. Oh, I'm not the only person struggling with depression, or I'm not the only person struggling with whatever it is. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Ladies, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on today. And if you'd like to get a hold of Clarissa or Jessica, you can go to fusionacademy.com, or you can call them at 602-661-3721. And if you're looking to get in touch with me, you can go to executivefunctioncoachaz.com, and you can subscribe to our upcoming Executive Function magazine. You can also look at the 3 previous editions that we have already put out. You can look at our testimonials. You can email me. You can contact me for a free evaluation, whatever you need. I'd be happy to help you out. And if you'd like to give me a call, my number is 480-648-1122. And without you, we would not have this show. So thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you, Fazia. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.
All right, excellent. Good show. We're all clear.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
Yep, you're welcome. Thank you.